Welcome to GPS, brought to you by Obsolete Gamer. I am J.A. LaRock, and today we are profiling Rahul Sood. And, you know, it's kind of funny because, I mean, entrepreneur, I mean, this is like the epitome of that. I mean, we're talking about Microsoft Ventures, we're talking about Voodoo, and, you know, actually, before we continue, I have to say, I spent 10 years with Alienware, and, you know, you guys were considered like the rivals.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they used to show us, you know, like pictures of like you guys kicking puppies and stuff. It's like a lot of propaganda. So I just want to let you know that, you know, I have to, you know, get all that out of my system to be able to do this interview properly.
That's all right. That's good to know that you're from Alienware. Yeah, we had an interesting rivalry. You know, I was always a big believer in you know, keeping open doors with competitors. You know, like I'm a big reader of the, you know, the art of war, and, you know, keeping your enemies close, or your friends close and enemies closer, kind of thing. And, you know, Alienware was an interesting company. They did extremely well. You know, they grew very fast, and Voodoo sort of took a slightly different approach. We didn't quite do the volume, but we created a premium brand that was great. So yeah, it was a fun time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, I'm joking about the propaganda stuff, but as far as, you know, seeing what you guys done, and as far as also before, you know, obviously,
I'm still in contact with Nelson and Alex on Facebook, so.
See, that's a great thing, because I started with them back in '99, so obviously I got a chance to really become cool with Alex and them, and I'm still in contact with Alex and stuff like that. And, you know, preparing for this interview, I got to see some of your lectures talk about entrepreneurship, and when you talked about, you know, going out and having that drive, I mean, I definitely want to talk about Unikrn, but can you tell me, like, you know, even back in the Voodoo days, I mean, being, you know, the first to get that video game, you know, PC company, I mean, obviously the gaming, you know, world was blowing up and people wanted that gaming PC. But, you know, coming off of like Commodore, Amiga, things like that, you still had the PC, the 46, things like that. I mean, how did you know? Like, how did you have that drive when other people were saying, like, hey, you know, we still had the clones starting to come out, that drive to go and say, hey, I'm going to build this company and turn into something?
Yeah, you know, I can't say that it was like sort of a day one thing, but I can certainly say that it was just it was a drive to create something premium, you know, in a market where there wasn't anything premium, you know, and it's amazing to think that we turned a commodity into a luxury, right? And I think you can pretty, like, when I work with startups, I always hear, you know, these sort of new entrepreneurs come in and say a space is too crowded, so therefore you can't get into it. And I always laugh at that, and I think, you know, these guys have no idea what they're talking about. Like, a crowded space you can come into and you can create a niche that can be extremely lucrative. And that has to do with, like, brand building and culture building, team building, you know. So for me, going into the PC space, it was pretty easy, like, to go in and create a you know, a high-end product in a space that was extremely crowded. And I've always been a gamer. You know, I've been a gamer longer than anybody I know. I've had every single console ever made. I even had a Commodore 64. I had a Apple IIc. You know, and then of course I had every console, including Neo Geo. I mean, who's owned a Neo Geo other than me? I don't know. So, but yeah, so I'm a big time gamer.
Now, I mean, what was it like? Because in one of the videos that I saw, you talked about, you know, how you got the call from Michael Dell and that you didn't even believe, you know, that it was him. But, you know, how is it making that transition, you know, with the sale of the company eventually to HP, and then moving on to Microsoft Venture, and then eventually to Unikrn? I mean, is it hard having that entrepreneur spirit to move on, you know, to something that, you know, you grew and you made, it was like your baby? Or is it just that, hey, I have this drive, so, you know, you got to keep making that moves because that's part of your drive?
You know, I think the hardest part for any entrepreneur is to let go, you know, especially the first time around. And so when we sold to HP, things were good for a while. You know, we launched Blackbird and we created, you know, new Omen products and stuff like that. And then something happened in the company. You know, Mark Hurd ended up leaving for some, you know, stupid reasons. After he left, they brought in a new guy, Leo Apotheker, and he was a complete disaster. Probably the worst CEO of all time. And I left like 5 days after he was to join. I wasn't into it, and I saw the company was going down a path of they didn't believe in brand at all. Like, I mean, the guy running the personal systems group, unfortunately, knew nothing about creating a brand, and he even called me out once in the middle of a you know, and I'm sure there's people from HP that'll be watching this, but he called me out in the middle of an executive retreat where I asked him about, you know, brand, and I basically confronted the people on stage and said, you know, how is HP going to build a brand that goes from the extreme low end to the extreme high end? Like, there's no brand in the world that has that type of elasticity. And the person on stage tried to parallel it to Mercedes-Benz. And I said, like, that's not the same comparison, because, you know, HP wanted to go all the way down to the, you know, say the Ford Fiesta, all the way up to the Ferrari, and, you know, with one brand, and you just can't do that. So, you know, so I left the company, and you know, at that point, I remember thinking to myself, wow, you know, this is all I know. I mean, I've been involved in this company for you know, something like 16, 17, or maybe 18 years, I guess, at that time. And it's all I knew. I graduated from high school. I started Voodoo. So what am I going to do? So, you know, I started dabbling around with a few things. I created some technology with some friends that combines betting with video games, which is really cool. And then I got this call from Microsoft to go join Microsoft and figure out what to do, you know, at Microsoft. And I learned very quickly what it was like to join a big company as an entrepreneur. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. I joined Microsoft as a GM, which is a extremely senior level inside a company like Microsoft. But I was the GM of Xbox Experience, which, you know, and anyone at Microsoft would probably laugh at that title, you know, looking back, because it really was a stupid title. But they didn't really have a place for me. They just hired me because of, you know, they saw something in me, which is great. I have to look back and thank the people that hired me in. And basically, I went in thinking that I would have a team, a budget, and support to go create something amazing. On day one when I arrived, there was a reorg, and basically I had 4 different managers in my first 11 months, and it was a terrible onboarding experience. But what I did learn was, you know, I learned that at Microsoft you can pretty much do anything you want as long as you're good at it. And it really is an amazing company because everybody there is smarter than me. And, you know, so you got to figure out, how do you lead incredibly smart people into something new? So I realized, like any entrepreneur does, that, you know, when your back is against the wall, you have to figure out how to create value with something that you know, that very few people know. And, you know, Microsoft needed to build some credibility in the startup ecosystem. I spent a lot of time in the startup ecosystem. So I pitched some people on the idea of creating a fund for startups that was called the Bing Fund. And it worked. You know, I got to create a team and started the Bing Fund, and that eventually turned into Microsoft Ventures, which was amazing. So I ran that for a couple of years, and realizing, you know, when I was at Microsoft Ventures, I used to spend time with startups and entrepreneurs from around the world, you know, everywhere from, you know, Paris to London, Israel, you know, even Moscow, China, India, like all sorts of places, you know, and I got to interact with all these amazing entrepreneurs. And I think the turning point for me was when I was when I was doing a talk somewhere, I forgot, I think maybe it was in Berlin. I was doing a talk on stage and talking about how, as an entrepreneur, you have to be hungry and you have to go out and create things, and, you know, and be willing to cut your paycheck. And here I am, you know, making like you know, pretty much 7 figures at Microsoft, and thinking to myself, what am I doing? I'm lecturing these guys, these men and women, on how to be an entrepreneur, and here I am being the biggest hypocrite ever. I've been in this company for 3.5 years, and I'm like, I'm not creating anything anymore. I need to go out and create. And that was it. So that was sort of the spark that led me to kind of leave and start Unikrn.
And that's the thing with Unikrn. It's like you have the ability to go out and create something brand new with esports, which is blowing up, even though it's kind of funny because I just got through doing a show where you had some people still trying to talk about esports as not being important. You still have some people trying to attack it when obviously you can see by the numbers that it's getting numbers that's rivaling, Major League Baseball, even football, the Super Bowl of football championship. And, you brought a company forward that is taking advantage of that. Can you give us, tell us a little bit about the Unikrn company?
Yeah, so it actually started where Microsoft invested in a company that I really liked. This was through me when we did Microsoft Ventures, and the company, the shortest way to describe it is it's a company that enables game communities to monetize their servers. So they had a platform that reached something like 2 million users in around the world, and when I left Unikrn, when I left Microsoft to start Unikrn, one of the first things I did was say, I really want to make a deal to buy this company. I was helping them, make some introductions to other people that might buy them, including Razer and a couple of others, but those deals didn't work out. And so when I left Microsoft, I went up to the folks at Pinion and I made an offer to buy them, and it just happened, So we ended up buying the company, and we've since grown it to about 10 million users around the world in over 100 countries worldwide. And we then said we need to acquire the technology that I helped start that combines betting with video games, because I really wanted that team. The team is unbelievable. They're based in Germany, and they're some of the best technologists I've ever met. And so the vision was that esports is growing. When I was at Voodoo, esports was not even called esports; it was just professional gaming. And I knew it was going to grow one day, but I didn't think it was going to explode the way it has in the past year. And so we said, like, instead of doing the in-game betting thing, let's first start with the spectator side. Let's look at how many people are actually watching these games, and let's create opportunity for them to bet on the games, because our mission is to heighten the experience and increase the level of engagement of watching and engaging in esports. And there's no better way to increase the engagement than through betting. So in order to solve the biggest problem we had, which was legalities and liquidity, we went out and we partnered with one of the largest publicly traded and most respected wagering companies in the world. They're called Tabcorp. The long story short is my partner was in Australia at the time. He went and met with the higher ups at Tabcorp and shared with them our vision, and they fell in love with us. We signed a deal that gives us global exclusivity. We're the global esports partner to Tabcorp. They became one of our largest investors in the seed round, and things just started to snowball from there. We created what you see on our site right now is just a very basic product, but on Friday we're launching a new version. So on Friday, we have a new version of Unikrn Arena coming out that's going to be completely different, and it's going to be a great experience. And so we launched in the UK and Australia and also Ireland, but we're also creating a product for the US market, which will come out in the next month. So yeah.
So as far as the ability to bet, like, how would that work for like the average person? Is it a matter of following a person that's playing and their overall victory, like in a tournament, or is it per victory? Like, is it something you would equate to how people do in betting with the sports, per bet, or is it over like a season, like they're doing a season series?
It's a great question. We do tournament bets. We also do game bets. So and on Friday we'll have more betting markets as well. So basically, you could bet on all sorts of things. You can bet on, who's going to win this game, like which team. So these are team games. These aren't individuals betting against each other, or these aren't individual games. These are team games like League of Legends and CS:GO and Dota 2, and eventually we'll do Heroes of the Storm, and we make it possible for people to bet on the outcomes of those matches, and we'll also have in-game betting markets as well. So yeah, we do it all.
Now, is there a threshold as far as the level of player? So, like, I guess, would it matter if the person is high up on the level of tournament? Do they have to be as a certain level of their skill?
That's a good question. So right now we're only doing professional tournaments. So we're only doing like the highest end, tournaments, but they're broadcast to millions of people around the world. So anybody who watches them can bet on the outcome of those tournaments. We're currently doing that, but we do have the capability to broaden that beyond just the professional tournaments. But at the moment, we're starting with this, and then we'll go from there.
Overall, what do you think is your opinion on esports? Because there's been some people obviously who still try to hate on the idea of esports, either attacking it, even some people who have attacked it for being on like ESPN, like Colin Cowherd. I mean, have you heard that controversy? Do you have any opinion on it?
Yeah, I've heard it all, but those who are on the wrong side of the issue are basically on the verge of obsolescence. And I promise you that those same people are not aware of what's happening with the youth these days. They're not paying attention to trends. So they can say what they want, but they'll be surprised. At some point in time they'll figure it out and realize that those who are on the edge of it are the ones who are going to come out on top. So there is no debate here. I mean, I've had this conversation with people before, esports and this esports debate, and it's really, I always just go in saying, look, there's no debate. Do you have any idea what your kids are doing? And they say no, and I say, well, why do you think they're not watching Seinfeld, reruns with you in the living room, right? There's a reason your TV is collecting dust. It has nothing to do with the fact that they don't like the living room. It has everything to do with the fact that they're playing games and watching people play games, and maybe you should get involved in your kid's life so you understand what's happening, right?
Yeah, exactly. And as far as, just betting in general, there's some people that even in sports, they would used to say, oh, betting is bad. And then you had like the draft and like DraftKings and things like that. And now you have the NFL and Major League Baseball teaming up, and it's revitalized the sport. I mean, do you think that something like Unikrn can even help esports because it's bringing more people to watch and more engagement, like you said?
There's no question that we can help, and there's also fantasy companies coming into esports. The thing is, fantasy is just a byproduct of U.S. gambling laws. It's a convoluted way to gamble, and it's sort of a joke. Like if you go to anywhere in the world where betting is just a part of culture, like Australia, for example, and you talk about fantasy, they kind of laugh at it. That in the U.S. you have to come up with some sort of legal loophole, which is a skill-based thing, in order to pass the laws. But at the end of the day, we believe it's just a matter of time before those laws change. I mean, the laws they cost taxpayers money, and then on top of that, they create loopholes so you can break the laws or get around the laws. It makes no sense to me. But at the end of the day, yes, Unikrn is great for esports. It creates way more awareness on the sport, and there's a lot of gamers out there. I see people, Reddit is always like the place to go if you want to feel bad about yourself. There's always the troll comments on there, but it's fun to listen to. But some of the people on there will say things like, oh, this has, these guys will not benefit the players at all. The players will never see any of this money, and it's just not true. I mean, we're sponsoring teams. Like on Friday, we're announcing a sponsorship of, a really great CS:GO team, and we're doing business with players. I mean, we hired one of the top League of Legends players in the world, who was 22 years old and playing League professionally, and so there's an industry here, and there's a much bigger industry and all up on esports that people need to pay attention to. And by the way, we also have some of the best investors in the world. Like everyone's looks at, they talk about the size and they speculate on this and that. Meanwhile, we have people like, Elizabeth Murdoch with her really exclusive freelance fund. We have Sherry Redstone, who runs Advanced Capital. And by the way, her father is also the guy who coined the phrase "content is king." And we have Mark Cuban, who's a major sports guy and also a big time entrepreneur. And we have Binary Capital, and the partners at Binary helped early fund Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat and Whisper and TaskRabbit. Like they've done some amazing deals, and so we have some great backing, and we have Tabcorp as a partner, and we have some really good momentum. So we're here to stay.
And that's the thing that people don't understand. A lot of times you hear gamers, especially in esports, I talk to people that say, they want to see this be bigger and they want to see it brought in where they can make more money, they can have more light shine upon them. If you have more companies brought in, more investors, it brings more legitimacy to the sport, then this is a big thing that's helping it. So even if right now things are growing, eventually it has its own community, its own industry, like you said, and it becomes much bigger, and that helps everybody. And that's what
Which,
someone has to see for the future.
which is exactly why gamers should be supporting it. So so like even publicly and on Reddit, they should be, they should really see this as a positive. But
Haters gonna hate.
yeah, haters gonna hate. That's right. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming on and talking with us. And I really want to see when it comes to US, because I want to keep an eye on this and see how it expands, because this should be really interesting, especially with esports and how it develops.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Take care.
All right, so thanks for watching Gamer Profiles from Obsolete Gamer, where the world and the gaming world comes to talk. We'll be back with another episode soon. But remember our motto: never stop gaming. Thanks for watching.